The video is not okay, it looks like.
Yeah, it's okay.
Mm.
So let's start. So it's
Mhm.
my so students, it's my pleasure to host, actually virtually host Dr. Surya Bhushan. Actually, he's like my big brother actually. So we during my high school, actually, I used to be like he is the one who mentored me actually. So a lot of inspirations came from him. Even going into IT was thanks to him only. So it's a lot of things personally he has done, and hence I'm not I'm not going to introduce him like formally. Basically, it's all informal only. Uh, so uh, one thing that I saw him from the beginning, that he was a lot of things into like talking about the economy of India and all, because he was interested in the economics and all. Finally, he did his uh, BA from Delhi University, and then he did his PhD from BHU. Sorry,
No, no, no.
JNU. Sorry, so, I mean, I always get confused on BHU, JNU. Jawahar Lal Nehru University, and where actually his work was related to I believe agriculture and environment, right? Right, Priya?
Yeah, yeah. I'll also explain a little bit on that on
Yeah.
regarding
Okay.
myself. So
Yeah. Sure.
no,
Sure.
no.
Yeah. So he has been working with closely with the planning commission, planning commission, right? It's called.
Yeah, planning commission, and
Right.
then some time in the North Block also,
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
and
So
then moved to corporate.
yeah, so he has been closely working with the government, and after that, he joined Accenture as a management consultant, where he worked for I think for over 10 years, probably, if I remember correctly, around 10 years.
Almost a decade, almost a
Ye-
decade.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So this is, and after that, he moved to academics. So currently, he is associate professor at Development Management Institute, DMI, Patna. And when Dr. Kamal requested me to conduct one class, then I thought about him, because as you know, the next thing you have to do is a development engineering project. And when you call development, that really means a big thing, basically. So India being a developing country, development, how it is important, and how it makes development itself makes a difference between a developed country like United States and a developing country like India. So development something that Subhasan Bhaiya actually he actually studies, basically has been studying this, and he's probably part of development management as well now. So this is what I like informally I can tell about him. It's a lot of things to tell, but this is like I also we have the whole class right now. So I will request Subhasan Bhaiya. Again, I'm not saying professor or Subhasan Bhaiya, because he has been Bhaiya only for a long time. So Subhasan Bhaiya, please go ahead. Thank you very much for joining.
Okay. Thanks, Jitendra, for your this is a personal introduction as well as my professional. In fact, whatever I have done so far. So, in fact, a little bit more on that. So, actually, I've been student of economics for almost now. It's 3 decades now, and studied economics, then practiced economics also, and currently also doing a more or less like a practice. So, that is where I find the usefulness of this particular subject. And when Jitendra approached me to have a talk on development, since we day in day out we are engaged with the community a lot, and try to understand how the issues are basically cropping up at this place. So and this is almost like a now 7 years in academia. So I worked. In fact, my career started in a different note. I did my master's, MPhil, and PhD from JNU, the economics department, and then moved to corporate. So directly went to the you can say the real business world, where we used to work with the in fact for Fortune 500 companies like Walmart, Target, all those big retail company, telecom sector giants, AT&T. Then suddenly, I in fact, somewhere the academic things was there in my heart, so I wanted to pursue this in my rest of the life. So that is how I come back to this place. So development. In fact, can I introduce? Can I share my screen now?
Sure,
Uh,
yeah, sure, sure. Go ahead.
okay, okay. Thank you. So I have prepared a presentation. I think what is the time total duration of this talk? Uh,
So
yeah.
it is till 10 o'clock. We can have to finish everything. So it is
Okay,
about
okay.
one
So
hour.
hopefully
Yeah.
1 hour would not be enough. But anyway, I'll try to share as much as thing possible. But I do not know whether we'll have a session, time remain for the question answer. But let me give you the broad overview how I perceive this particular topic, the development perspective. So uh, I hope you can see my screen now. Is it visible now?
No, no, it's not. It's not visible. Yeah.
No?
No.
Okay. Because it is showing in my
Oh,
share.
it just.
Okay, I have not shared. I have only enabled, but not shared. So hopefully now it is visible to everyone.
Yeah, it is visible now. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So in the next 1 hour or so, we'll try to, in fact, uh, share the basics of the development, and then basics. What I mean is like statistics you talk about, means how the things are being placed. Like one region is different from other regions. Like if suppose I'm comparing Punjab with Bihar, if I'm comparing in fact USA with India, or China with any other country, similarly Ukraine and Russia, whatever. So this is what the statics will little bit introduce on that. So how the world is basically placed in that way. And then the next part of the discussion would be centered around the dynamics part, means how one place has moved to other place. So what is the process which is involved, and in the last, the way forward, how can we diagnose those. So this is what my talk would be in the next hour or so. So if we start with the so this is broader objective. So to understand the concept of development itself, and then try to give uh, some holistic exposure to how the world are being placed, and what are the things which is triggering, what are the attributes one particular place of the country has. So let me straightway jump to the basic fundamental questions on the life possibilities. So how the life is possible in our earth. If we look at the closest neighbor, which is Mars, there is no life. Why? It doesn't have an atmosphere. It's too hot. The another neighborhood is, if you look at it, this is Venus. Venus is, again, it's too cold. So if you start looking at the Earth itself, the thing which we are lucky in that way, that why there is a life possibility in the Earth, because everything is almost like a very right here. Right on the sense that we have a uh, the biosphere which is in fact protecting our earth environment, and that has given the possibility of having a breathable air and drinkable water, and some sort of like a tolerable temperature which allow us to have spent our time here. And that is how the possibility of life on earth has come. So why I'm giving you, let me give you the a little bit description of that. So there is a serious attempt has been made by a USA scientist to replicate this biosphere. Sometime around, I think, in the 90s, early 90s or late 80s, to replicate the biosphere in Arizona desert. And they have created a, in fact, it's a massive investment by the US government. It's like a $2 billion, more than $2 billion project. So they, what they have done is they artificially created some of the biospherean, they what they call it. So, and some of the scientists also enter into that place. Somehow, the things was not able to regenerate themselves. So they have created a sort of environment what makes the biosphere to happen. So right temperature, right kind of humidity, and so despite that, in those closed environment, the oxygen level suddenly gone down. The pollination was possible with the insects, so a lot of insects has been died. So within 6 months, the project has to be called off. So what does it mean? Something has been destroyed, it cannot be regenerated. That is what the nature has given us, right? So it's a very in fact complex things. We have developed so much on that, but if you look at from the nature's point of view, whatever is given on the earth is very very difficult to replicate. I have taken this from the Economist magazine, the geological timeline of the earth. I think we all know that it is there are theories and counter theories, but one thing is consensus that uh, the earth lifetime is basically currently, if you look at from that perspective, it's almost like a 4500 million years. And if you look at from that side, most of the time has been spent by some other species, and that is what we call a different era. This is what the geologist language. So if you scale this in 100 years, we have only spent almost not more than 5 years. This is what the currently we are here. So even our ancestors who are called hunters and gatherers, they have spent more than our time. So you can see within that 5 years of the whole, I'm just scaling down in the 100 years, and this is how the earth has been completely transformed with our, uh, in fact, our intervention into the earth. So what I'm saying is basically why I'm sharing this, to understand how the life has evolved in the earth, and then what are the complications started emerging. So when we are hunters and gatherers, what was the life at that time? So economy was very pretty simple affair. So in fact, whatever you gather and you hunted, you basically use that, and you cannot accumulate anything because the accumulation was equal to death. Why? If you start accumulating, you cannot move from one place to another place. So the life was very very simple affair, but at the same time we couldn't survive more than 25 years, or 20 years was the maximum lifetime a human was able to see. So there the time was limited wants and unlimited means. So uh, whatever you have used in one particular place, you move to other place, the other place from where you have moved, it start regenerating themselves. So that is why we have survived for a very very long time. But during this time, hunter gatherers time, what has happened? We discovered some technology, and fire was very very important technology, through which the best thing which has happened to the human civilization was the fire. Suddenly you so initially the situation was either be lunch or take lunch. That was the kind of interaction we with the humans with the non-humans, right? So when the fire has been discovered, suddenly we started cooking foods, and that has saved us, that has improved our brain. So because if you look at from the humans evolution side, the brain requires a lot of nutrition, and through the fire technology, you are able to diversify your food habits, and that is where it has helped you to build your mind. So that is one of the best thing which has happened during hunters and gatherers. And the next period was basically it's becomes we started looking into the world around, and then we see that if some we are using the plants, so plants, how the plants are coming up, and that has induced us to think about the to settle down in a place, and we started doing agriculture. And the moment we start doing agriculture, what are the things which have happened? you were able to produce enough to in fact for the next period. But how can you save that? So that means the other thing is not everyone uh, who were living in a one particular place was doing agriculture itself. Correct. So the surplus has helped us to have some of the people in the society not to work. Right. So not everyone was supposed to work because you were getting enough of production so that everyone was getting the output. So in that society, what are the key things which have happened? Let me introduce you this thing. So there are, if suppose there are two kind of a farmers, one is productive farmer, one is unproductive farmer, and there are two type of person, one is strong and one is. If you decompose this into the this metric, who would be the best people in the society? The strong and productive. They are weak, but they are productive. So they are both are good Samaritan. But if you look at from this perspective, they are strong but not productive. They are weak but unproductive. So for survival to them is very, very challenging. Right. And here, who are the people who are most threatened? These are the people who are most threatened because how can they survive? Because these people are not producing enough. So what they will do? They will snatch food from somewhere, and that is where the so this whole the tussle, the power equation started with this surplus production, right? And from there, the all you can say the danga fasad has started. So this is how the life has evolved. So let me little bit scaled up this particular society or tolas to a bigger place. So if you have a three kind of society which is like this, so the all bads come together would be always greater than these blue goods, right? And that is where, in fact, here, what is who would be controlling what? Because these are strong and productive people are not threatened by anyone, but these people would be threatened by these people. So the all you can say the tussle of sharing and fighting is basically emerged on between them, right? This is where the role of a state has emerged, and our whole civilization started with this. So some people become very strong. So monarchies started, and then currently the place is the time which we call a democracy, where every individual rights are being protected. It's because of this. So no one has the monopolies of violence. So only a state has the monopolies of violence. So if someone do anything wrong, it is the state's responsibility to maintain the law and order. That is how the role of a state has emerged. So role of a state was basically to make this equation in more of a equal. So that is how the society has over the period evolved. This is a very brief description. I have skipped a lot of things in this, but I just try to give you some glimpse on that so that you would know how the things are uh, in fact moving. And that is where the concept of good life has started emerging. So what is a good life? uh, so if we look at into the philosophers who are like a great thinkers, done some wonderful insight to understand the world around us, and Aristotle was very profound in his approach, and that is what he has said, that i- if some person it is not only a person can operate in a biological sense, but it has to also exercise their choice and reason. That then we say that it is a good life. Similarly, the Marx and Engels and Amar Sen also has, in fact, taken that particular position to beyond that. So everyone basically talking about uh, the good life means if you are able to exercise your choice and freedom as well as whatever in your mind, if it comes, then if you are able to exercise those, that is the considered to be the ideal world, right? So what does life mean to anyone if you start looking from a common man perspective? So this is some simple straightway things which is emerged. A life where children's lives are saved early on, a life where you can drink clean water, because if someone has taken a birth on earth, then one should see a safer at least 70, 80, whatever is the lifespan safely. And how can you see safely? If you are able to reduce the infant mortality, if you are able to give a good health and education, what I mean, I'll come to that later on also. So why education is important in that perspective, and a life where governance and structure, those are the things which is basically is how the rules defined in the societies are predictable and bounded. That is where the life mean to anyone. So in that context, I straight away jump into the Indian Constitution. I hope you won't mind, because the economics part will come quickly. So you're still thinking it is political science. But this is how the societies are structured. So it's very important to understand how we are designing and devising our rules and regulation and governance. So this, I think you might be knowing this. This is the preamble of the Constitution. We have, in fact, adopted this Constitution with the keeping in mind that what are the things which we should have. Whoever living in this particular political boundary of India, they should have a justice. Justice of which kind of justice means it has to be just and fair, right? That is what I mean of justice. And which kind of justice is a social, economic, and political. Social means there should not be any social discrimination to anyone. Economic means no one has the economic power to dictate terms with the other people. That is what the economic justice. And political is basically, politics is one of the best things which has happened to the society, because that is where you try to make to find a common denominator, so that developing a consensus on a one particular aspects, because the life is not a equation, mathematical equation. So nothing is converging to a one particular aspects, and that is what you will see, the development is also like that. So it is a very complex issue. So in that way, developing a political consensus is one of the biggest challenge the human generally faces always. And then you have liberty of thought. This all you can say the Aristotelian concept which is coming here, right? Freedom of thought, to worship, faith, religion, equality of status, opportunity, equal opportunity. These are the, if you start looking into the preamble, it is basically reflecting what the thought leaders, or you can say the philosophers has talked about, what constitutes a good life. And if I just remove some of the words here in this, it basically not only the India, it should basically means to the earth also. We the people solemnly resolve to secure all its citizens. I'm talking about the earth. Justice, social, economic, political, liberty of thought. Everything is, it's not only the humans, but non-human also you should include into that. And that is where the ultimate level of development one should think about. So I'll- what is development? So development, I think this word itself has emerged from the opposite of development. What is opposite of development? It's underdevelopment. In the before World War II, uh, around 1940s, this word was only used in biology. It was never been used in any other discourse. Freddie Truman, the U.S. president at that time, some of the speech writer has written. They were going with a rehabilitation post-war World War II rehabilitation of the global in the places, particularly the place which was destroyed. So the speech writer has written that some of the places are underdeveloped. We need to take care of that, and that has given a catch of that. So everyone loved that particular words. And currently, this is one of the most sought after word when it comes to the policy makers. So now even like a Mr. India, we have a Mr. Development also. Some of the chief minister are called Mr. Development, Development Chief Minister. That is how Vikas Purush ho gaye ye. So this development word has been used and also abused like anything. People are also against that. Why we need that? If you go to any village, people are very happy that the kind of things which I just talked about, the what is good life, they are pretty good. If you can see in those contexts, they are very very happy. So what kind of development is needed in that place? And we suddenly run a big road, and the flyover is passing through, 4 lane is passing through. Suddenly the whole complexion of the places has changed. So there are a lot of debate going on, what does mean by the development. So what we see, that development is something which is very dynamic in nature. It's not only not just any change, but a definite improvement. What does it mean by definite improvement? This is what I am thinking of development, basically from the dark side to the brighter side. That is what the But the moment you are talking about the change, it requires what it is, not a discrete function, it is a continuous function, right? As you see in the basic fundamental calculus. So the moment you have a continuity in this change, it requires the presence of the locality and community in question, because you cannot talk about the development, the change, without making the local community not central to that. It would be always a challenge, and that is where the bigger problems emerge. Someone sitting in the Delhi or center, they say that these people are deprived of them. Let us give them that. So this is not what the development is always challenged, right? And the next one is basically the alignment. So these are, if you are sync with that, alignment means the local values and capacity. So let's say if one particular village does not have the capacity to absorb those level of high level of economic growth, so then it would be very very challenging to have a change in those society. And that is where sometimes it creates a lot of problem. Let me share this a very quick video of Hans Rosling. In fact, it is also available in the YouTube, I hope. And Jitendra, please do let me know if it is not playing, because sometime I have seen uh,
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
let me see. I think it looks like it is not playing.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
Okay, no
yeah, yeah,
worries.
yeah, yeah.
I'll share that. So this is, I just wanted to share you how the world has progressed in the last 200 years. And this is what you can see. This I have taken from our world in data. In fact, and Gapminder is another site which you should look into that. There you will find a lot of graphics and that also. So I have mentioned this. So if you look at from this perspective, 1800, how was the world in 1800? It was something like the Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, USA. They were having the life expectancy of almost below 40, not 40 even. So by 1800, the average time spent on the earth by a citizen of any country was not more than 40 years. So that was the kind of life we used to live. How was the India placed? India was somewhere around mid 20, so 25 and 26. That was the life average during those time. If you look at from the 150 years, within 150 years, USA and Norway, Canada, these country has grown like anything. Very very fastly they have moved to the bracket of 70 plus. Norway. But if you look at from the India perspective, we have not grown faster, so still below 40. So even in the 1950s, the life expectancy on in India was less than 40 years. So कोई भी आदमी अगर धरती पे आया हिंदुस्तान में, तो वो 40 तक ही देख ले तो बहुत बढ़िया है. That was the kind of situation at that time. So you can see there are very skewed progress which has taken place during those time. But if you look at from that 1950 to 2012, suddenly we got a lot of country got independence. And because this was almost like a colonial regime during most of the countries, and this has given a different kind of boost. Now we are not as good as Japan or Austria, but suddenly we have moved very very fast also. So this is the current situation of the world, is how the world has improved a lot when it comes to the spending time on the earth, right? So, and if I see a different metric here, how the richer countries are happy or not happy. That is where. So what I mean to say is development means what? You are happy or not. That is what the ultimate level of objective of anything. So if you look at from that, the country which has very high per capita income means the country which is very rich in the nature, they are very satisfied with their life. And if you look at most of the places, so there to be a tend to be, it's not very strong correlation, means perfect correlation, but generally it is seen that the world over, your if you are economically better off, you are certainly better off. So what I mean to position here is basically if the economic growth is taking place in one particular region, the place is much faster to develop. This can be means not the end. So economic growth say he, this may be the driving seat to go into the development path. अगर एक रास्ता बनाया जाए कि डेवलपमेंट कहाँ जा रहा है, so how the things would be moving, and that is where basically the economic growth will help you to move into that direction much more quickly. And that is why the whole country is moving towards the, I'm not going to the growth versus development debate, but the economic growth, whichever places have seen much quicker, they have seen much more progress in that their life. And I'll come to that because the time I guess is not very limit. So health and wealth go together. This is another in fact graph I am showing you. So basically the higher the per capita income, the infant survival rate is very high. So that is how the world has seen. And if you look at from the prosperity over the period, you can see the 180 to 2000, this the data, and till 1500, the world was almost like a similar situation. There is hardly any difference between one particular country with the other country. So there is a, but suddenly after 1500, or you can say 1700, the world has started diverging. So the United States have suddenly taken off, and same with the Western Europe also. Western Europe initially was on the higher side, but it was taken over by United States. India is having a similar different pace. China has moved from above India also in the last 3 decades also. So this is how the prosperity, if you look at from the per capita income of the country, this is how the world has moved. So if we see a map of this sort, if you look at from this particular, this is the actual geography of the world. Impose the same graph with the population. Now you can see that the graph, this map looks very weird, right? Suddenly, the China and India is basically the popping up, and by wealth, you can see the Africa has been completely off the map, disappeared from the map, and these are the countries which has now become very prominent. And when it comes to the population of the poor, so the USA has completely gone. Same happened with the Western Europe. Some part of the Eastern Europe is there, but USA, India, and China and Africa is now booming, right? So the world is highly disproportionate in nature. This is what the statics I wanted to talk about. The basics, basically how the world is basically divided into the different components. So the question which now emerges, in fact, let me skip this. Why do some countries grow rapidly and other countries grow slowly? This is an automatic question which emerges, right? So if you start looking into this, there is a very interesting theory which is coming with this particular book. In fact, this is a very interesting book. I would recommend you to go through this particular book. This is by one geologist has written on, and it's a pleasure reading. Guns, jumps, and a steel. So the first thing which has come to Diamond's mind was why the country, which is particularly the European Eurasian country, has seen a early civilization, not the other places. So he comes with a geography answer. So if you look at from this side, this is Earth, right? So this is a land, actual landmass. And if you see the temperature, the climate, the agroclimatic condition in this particular zone would be the similar if you look at from this side. So this movement from east to west or west to east, you would not see a major change in the agroclimatic or any climatic conditions. And if you see from the vertical movement, the top to bottom movement of the earth, you will see a lot of change in the temperature as well as the climatic condition. So whatever we have learned in this zone, uh, this particular zone was easily replicated in this zone. So what we have learned in the beginning, we learned to domesticate crops, we learned to domesticate animals because they have helped us to improve our performance. हम लोग ने crops और animals को क्यों domesticate किया? Because they are started helping us. So whatever we have learned here was easily replicable in this particular zone. That is why this zone has seen a much early progress in the Earth lifetime. So the question which emerges: how do rich country differ from the poor ones? This is what the ultimate level of understanding which can we can think about. And if you start looking into that, the first features which emerges in the richer and poor country division is the factor of production. So if you look at from the any rich country, they have a lot of physical capital. Means they have a lot of bridges, lot of tools which is available in their countries, and that makes them very productive, right? So one place, moving from one place to another place is very fast. You can do a lot of things very quickly also. So the richer country have more physical capital. Similarly, the richer country have more human capital. This is where the importance of education I am talking about. The capital means, capital ka matlab kya hua? Any kind of asset which gives you services for a very long time. And in that way, the human capital is very important, because the human capital is what? It's a tools of the mind. If suppose I know how to operate a laptop, I can provide digital services. So there are, if I know how to operate, in fact, or the doctors and engineers, those kind of the people, the good quality doctors and engineers. I'm not talking about the place here, but this is what the human capital. You are able to solve a lot of problems very quickly. So this is what the advantage of having a human capital, and the rich country have more human capital if you compare with the poor ones. And the other part is basically the technological know-how. Like the recently the COVID has struck, so only few countries were able to create a vaccine around that. So this human capital was very important in that perspective, because we had invested a lot of money on the human capital, and that has given the benefit in handling this COVID also in the current scenario. And this technological know-how is basically nothing but your understanding the world, how the world is performing, how the world is doing. So it's like the fundamental apple falling with the Newton and then pi and all those. These kind of knowledge is very important to solve our day-to-day life problems also, right? So the rich country have more of the people who are skilled enough and to do those. If you start comparing with the poor ones. But the next question emerges is, uh, in fact, bringing all these together will help you to that. I'm not going into that. But why do rich country have more factories in production? What are the things which is making them to have a more factor production? कहाँ से इतना factor production आ गया इनके पास? So this is the fundamental. I think we all respond to incentive. This is what the basic fundamental economics is, right? We all are driven by incentive. Incentive consists of not only material incentive, it's a social incentive, it is also a moral incentive. What does it mean? Let me give you a little bit on that. In fact, uh, the the China Revolution, which recently has taken place of the unprecedented growth in the China, the incentive was also one of the major factor. In fact, I'm looking at constantly at the watch because I need to explain a little bit more on that. So it's basically what has happened in China during 78. They have come out with a household responsibility system, which has become a game changer for China. Prior to that, the 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 farming in China was used to happen in the commune system. Means क्या होता था कि the there used to be a lot of 500 families was given a one particular set of lands, and the government was giving them the inputs to produce. Up suppose you are not owner of any of the land and you have been asked to produce on this given land, and the produce is not yours. What would be your incentive to go with the extra miles to produce? And that has created a huge problem. So 1978 they come out with a household responsibility system that every house has been given a some sort of land, and through which whatever the produce will happen, some surplus would be kept by the household and the rest would be given to the government, and that is how it has changed the agriculture productivity in this system. Correct. So this is how the incentive is very, very important. In fact, another classic example is the emergence of Australia. So when Australia was, I think you know the history of Australia. So whoever was outcast in Britain has been deported to Australia. क्या होता था कि ब्रिटेन में जो भी बदमाश गुंडे होते थे सोशली आउटकोस्ट, उनको शिप पे डाल के उनको ऑस्ट्रेलिया डिपोर्ट कर दिया जाता था. So what has happened when they were deported? The sea journey was very, very long. So a lot of sea sickness and virus infection. So a lot of people died on the way. So Britain में बड़ा हंगामा हो गया. So then the British people have designed that uh, जो captain of the ship होगा, they would be incentivized in the sense that they would be given a some bounty if one person who has been on board on Britain and finally safely deboarded at Australia was given a captain some sort of pound sterling, and that has completely changed the game. So this is how the incentive is very, very important factor in these plays. I just want to show you why people do not commit crime, and you can capture this in incentive framework also. First is basically the material incentive. उनको लगता है कि कहीं अगर मैं क्राइम करूंगा तो आई वुड बी जेल्ड, losing house, being fined. These are all material disincentive. The second is social incentive, the reputation you're at stake. People should not believe that, think about something wrong about you. And the moral incentive is basically your strong belief within you that. So this is what the incentive, everyone is driven by incentive. Some people may be driven by more of a economic incentive, some may be social, some may be moral. Even a big baba, those जो कैलाश पर्वत पे ही चले गए, नागा बाबा और एनी बाबा, they are also driven by a moral incentive, not by not by economic incentive, but at least these are the things which is driving them. So we all are driven by this strong incentive. This is what I wanted. But again, the next question emerges is, why do some country have better incentives? आखिर कुछ कंट्री पास से कहां से आया ये? And that is where the institution matters. So the rules which define the society is at place in those regions, and that is why the people respond to incentive. Right? There is hardly a corruption in that way. People do not lie. So in those places, uh, in fact, I'll skip this story. I'll explain you. Maybe I'll get a chance later on sometime though. So the Korea experiment is very, very natural in that way. I'll just wanted to highlight this Korea things, because how the institution becomes very, very important in looking into the development of North Korea and South Korea. You know the history of Korea. They got independence in the post World War II. The Japan was occupying this particular place, so Japan has lost the war, and they have surrendered this region. So the region which was closer to Russia, got into the North Korea, and this place was taken over by the USA. So USA pumped a lot of money in the South Korea, and this region was again becomes communist in their approach. So again, you can see the property rights and other things were not clearly placed in those regions. It was very centralized in that way. And here they have emphasized a lot on the free market and capitalist system of production. And this is a NASA picture, a very recent picture of NASA, which shows that it's a night picture of this Korea region, and you can see South Korea has more of a bulbs, the lights energies are being used. That shows the prosperity in the region in comparison to North Korea. And if you see the kind of growth which has witnessed in this Korea region was very different. So by 1970, they have suddenly taken a different route. So दो भाई थे दोनों, they were like a identical twins, and suddenly, thanks to the institution, how you are creating those rules in the society, once country has moved taken off a different path, and the other country is now, you can see the Kim Jong, they only test a ballistic missile. So they're highly impoverished region despite having a very rich in natural resources. So this is what the institution I'm just talking about. So, but at the same time, uh, why institution matters, because when the property rights are clearly defined, property rights means, suppose you have given a one particular land, and land पे अगर मान लो तुम्हारा नहीं किसी और का अधिकार है, तो then what is going to happen? You're not incentivized enough to do any activity on the land. So if the land is yours, the property rights are clearly defined, that you have all the rights in the world given by the state to use those land for your own productive purpose. You would always make it that land is a very productive. This is what the property rights. Political stability, dependable legal system. These are some part of the institution. Institution का मतलब वही है कि this is how we create a rules in the society, right? Now, the next question emerges, why do some countries have better institution? The better institution is basically, this is one of the geography region is another, again, has emerged. If you look at the world's geography, the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, the most of the impoverished region, जो पिछड़ा देश है, maximum, if you can see, is falling into that. So they are geographically unlucky in that way. Not all the country are in bad shape, but most of the country are in serious bad situation. The other factor is basically the geography, the ideas and culture and history. I'll little bit emphasize on the history part, and I'll end this talk. So why, if you look at from the US and Europe, the US was only one country, but Europe was a conglomeration of a lot of big country, and they were early colonizers, so they have very prosperous in that way. But the current scenario, the US is much moved faster than if you compare with the other country. What was the reason? The reason generally is said that when the US Constitution was written, the two ideas, one idea of democracy coming of the John Locke and the free market from the Adam Smith, was very dominant in that particular time. And USA wanted to write their history afresh. So they wanted to the best practiced idea into the world. And that is how they put into their constitution. That has allowed the market and individuality to prosper in that region. So it is not like a somewhere where some guardian, a state is acting as a guardian. The state is only acting as an enabler. That was basically the dominant idea. At the same time, they are very lucky to get the George Washington as the first president, because the George Washington himself has not allowed more than 2 terms to continue. उसने कहा कि नहीं, I do not want to have a monarchy again, which is existing at that time in the Europe, to be practiced in India, in USA. And that has given a signal to the whole society of USA. So even their corporates are now controlled by, not by the family. Even you might be knowing Steve Jobs himself has been thrown out by the board of Apple, and then again later on make an entry. That is another story. But That is how they started working professionally, and it has gone into their mind and the culture also. So that is why some of the places are different from the other places, right? So if we join the pieces of those puzzle, uh, this is what the the first thing was we talked about, the factor of production, and then how you are organizing those factor of production and technological. Why those places have that? Because they have a better incentive. And then why they have better incentive? Because they have a lot of better institution in the place. And why they have a better institution? Sometimes it's basically the more of ideas and history and geography. So this is how the uh, one place is developed and one place is not so developed. That is how you can compare one village with the other village, one district with the other district, one your own IIT with the other IITs also, your one institution with the other institution, or one department with the other institution. This essentially captures this framework gives you a lot of understanding of what are the key things which is missing there, where we should emphasize more on that. So it will help you to solve those puzzles, right? And I hope this video might be played, or again this is no. Okay, this is being played, I think. Let me just quickly. So in your life, I would rather say behave like this. This is very interesting. You can see they are not able to cross. Suddenly their leader has come, and to see how the smartly they can. It's,
Yeah, the leader also let others go first.
yes,
No, so
yes,
that's another thing. Yeah.
yes. That is what. So thank you for your time and patience also, because a lot of things was to say, but somehow the time was also another factor, which has so
Sure, yeah, I think thank you very much. So wonderful talk actually. It was so interesting that it is something like you're watching some movie thriller, so trying to see what is going to happen, what is going to happen. So wonderful, and it gave justice to the course itself. Its name is Human Geography and Societal Needs. It actually
okay,
is captured everything, and also like geography plus history also as well. So it gives a lot of things where the students can work on. Only few things like just in nutshell that actually what students can take it from here. So a lot of things, but just probably the most important thing that you pointed out that there are three types of capitals which are needed: the physical capital, human capital, and technological knowledge, basically.
yeah,
And here, what students should actually think about physical capital, like infrastructure and all, they can work on the human capital. That really means means that don't leave India. Okay, you be
yeah,
remain here so that the
yeah,
capital is here only. Technological knowledge, R&D, research and development, that
yeah,
has to be done. So that is one thing. And apart from that, lot of things what development means, and students can actually think in those direction. You actually pointed out which all things are important,
mm,
and there is a scope of technology everywhere in all
yeah.
those sectors, and where these young engineers can think and they can do some work on that. So it was very interesting, and of course, I'm looking forward to your another talk sometime later. Okay, so that Dr. Kamal also is talking about. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
We
Okay, so thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Bhushan. And as you said that we are looking forward to interacting more with you. So, and thank
Okay.
you so much. And thank you, Jitendra, to you also for
Yeah,
having
so
me.
I think
Yeah.
we forgot about the students. I think one, two questions we can also actually take from students if they're interested. So is it okay, Bhaiya?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no issue. I think
Yes, although time is up, but
that is
still,
why I suddenly, in fact, I thought of saying a lot of things, but since the time was limited, so so
so
I thought of handling the question in the last also.
yeah, yeah. So any questions, guys? Although most of the students have left, but any couple of questions we can take.
they have another class, so I think sometimes
Okay.
this always happens. So this is more class.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank
Oh,
you.
so- okay, Vijay, then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, the Kamalji, anything would like to comment?
No, as I said, like thanks a lot for all this, and we'll be talking separately, interacting. So I think
Okay.
that will be good.
Okay.
So thanks to, Dr. Bhushan, thanks to you also for
Thanks.
having you here, and for all this was really wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay again. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kamal.
Bye.
Thank